Yo, this is Euler. Check out my episode on classic burners.
So today we have the privilege of having one of my friends and one of the guys who is a bombing legend in Los Angeles. Euler 1, representing LOD, OTR, and COI. Thank you for coming by, and it's a pleasure having you.
Hey, privilege is mine.
So we'll get right into this. Basically, let's get back to the origins, to the beginnings, of how you started, how you found out about Graph, where you were at, your area. Let's cover the basic stuff like that.
Okay. I guess as you put it, you see me as coming out of the SGV. I'll take that. I was more or less in Alhambra, with the family's house right there. I guess I could start maybe at 88. Started as seeing that there was a game out there that was Graffiti. I don't think I knew at first that I'd ever be a part of it. And there was some good graffiti coming off the 10 freeway that really was what started my interest. Some of the people, Cab and Angst, and some of the stuff the STKs were doing, Mural.
Was it Freeway Bombers out there?
It was FBs, even I think Sir that you had on the other week, him and Whisk had a couple of things out there. That was just really impressive, at the time. I guess I always had an eye for, those type of high spots. But it was an interesting time at the late 80s in the San Gabriel Valley. It seemed that the original writers that were out there that were noticeable, the scene that I had just missed, people like Pryor and Nicer and crews like BKR, that was pretty much just ending when I was starting. So for the couple like transition years of 88, 89, that's when you're figuring out what a name is, what your name's gonna be. I had a few little beginner names like most people do. I think originally it wasn't even a name. Like I just wrote some initials that were like some random nickname I had playing basketball. Mm-hmm. And then realized you got to pick a name, so I picked one, not knowing that there was. I'll just go back and say this. I was saying that I missed the scene pretty much, the people and crews I mentioned in the San Gabriel Valley, because in like from 86, 87, 88, there was a nice strong scene out there. The buses were getting mobbed. A lot of tags, writers that kind of were like legendary later,
Can you name a few of the crews and important writers of that era?
Yeah, I think it was KRH, SKA, STK, BKR. UTI made it out there on some buses, But right about the time when I was getting into the scene, a lot of those original people, gangbanging started becoming trendy. So, and it was happening where I was at too. The football team all turned into the local neighborhoods, and I was on the football team and was trying to figure out, do I go with them to the neighborhood? And I kind of did that for a little while until I saw my first murder, and it was actually twin brothers, and one brother was with us. He lost his life. He was shot in the head. And I remember running up to him with like 15 other guys, and it was just this puddle of blood just going like this. And that was about the time that I was having to choose, like, pursue, that future, hanging out with the neighborhoods, or go into graffiti, which seemed like a better avenue. And that's when I started paying attention, to what graffiti was developing there, and trying to search it out for myself, because there were no mentors, I didn't have anybody that like, oh, my friends are doing it, I'm gonna go do it. You know, I pursued it as something I wanted to do and found the friends. You know,
what kind of music were you listening to back then?
Everything. You know, that's an important thing in life to be well rounded in music. It just gives you so much. Yeah. You know, I mean, everything. Everything like Zeppelins and Pink Floyd's and whatever was the rock of the 80s and all hip hop since it started. You know, everything. House music. You know, oldies. You know.
We were mentioning that in the SGV in some areas down that way, there was a big scene of like the party crews and that sort of thing. So that did you ever?
We did that too.
Blues, backyard boogies and all that stuff.
That's let's see, how does it develop? Your skateboard and biking. Next thing you know, you're going out to those backyard boogies. And then it's the clubs and then the raves and festivals and and like I said, music, all on concerts and everything along the way. You know, those were just all phases. You know, and then ended up with like another phase of graffiti as a hobby.
Yeah. All right, so why don't we let's transition back into the buses, because that's where you started making an impact. And I saw your first name, Fleece, that you were writing, Flees. And I noticed first of all, you had a cool hand style. And then,
okay.
I mean, I thought it was cool because it was original. It was just different.
We'll call it original. That's right.
It was original, but it was well done. I mean, the letters were it was a very straight. You had like a lot of real strong straight lines. You were up, and then I would see you up a lot with like mean streaks and pentels, like white markers on the windows. And then I saw you get big scribes, and you pretty much, in the era you came out with, I would say you were like the king of the 70s, 71s, the buses that went towards El Monte bus station. Like you had all those scribed up.
Get Up Stickers is the ultimate bombing sticker. Made from military grade materials, these stickers are super easy to peel and were made for putting on tanks. So you know they're gonna last. So click on the link below to submit your designs. You don't want to sleep on this.
So let's talk about what the bus riding scene was in the El Monte area, San Gabriel area, and about scribing and some of the experiences you had with that.
Well, I agree. You know, like that was the El Monte bus area. I had all those lines. I never was able to be a part of the scene of that. You know, that's what I was saying. I'd missed that. There was a good El Monte bus scene, you know, with the crews and, you know, people that I mentioned, but I was never a part of. There was no bus bench. I'd heard that the El Monte station had once been, you know, kicking, but by 1990, I never seen any actual writer's bench out there. You know, the first writer's bench I ever saw was in Hollywood and Vermont that I ever attended, you know, 7th and Broadway. But I pretty much missed the whole scene out there. So that's why I think I had such a desire to find a scene, which is I was doing everything I could to get to Los Angeles and figure out where I fit in. You know, soon as I found out what a bus pass was, I made my fake one and I was off and running. You know, so any weekend you'd see me busing from down Valley Boulevard to downtown, and once I discovered Belmont, that was it. You know, I don't want nothing to do with San Gabriel Valley. You know, the only reason I was up out there at all was as a transit point. You know, but yeah, it was fun. Yeah, the buses out there. You know, for that period, people don't realize now how big, you know, the bus bombing was to the graffiti scene. You know, I don't know how you considered yourself an all-around writer if you had the opportunity but didn't bomb buses. You know, people would probably tell me, well, you know, I had a car. Well, I had a car too, but you know, when needed to, I used to go into the bus yards, and I don't know how many other people did that. I'd heard of a few, but I thought that was taking it another notch up there.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Any experiences you remember? Memories of getting like chased when you're doing Scribes, or
bus memories?
The tools that you use, because yours came out really legible. What were you using to scribe that?
I was a little prima donna. I liked the regular general scriber, little flip tips. If you could have one, that's your favorite thing. Arrowheads, do faster, bigger things. I used to like the red volcanic rocks that you'd find at gas station bus stops and things, just for doing like big outside scribes, or when the big, that sandpaper, Yeah, the scribes are fun. Just you get the same buses so often, So one of the things I started doing was, instead of putting years, next to your scribes, I'd put the months and years to differentiate all the different times I've been on the bus with different scribes. I never really saw other people doing that much. I used to like to, that one spot on the top of a bus window where there's one name you could just do big on the top of the window.
Yeah.
And that always kind of showed you, like in the older buses, the 86, 87 buses, like who was around first.
Yeah.
I used to like to get that spot, but on every window, back to front and then front to back on the whole bus.
Yeah.
Fun things were like on bus battles, doing silly things like with a spray can. Like, I like doing oil throw-ups from the back all the way to the front on the floor. I thought that was creative. Inside back grills. You ever been on a bus with somebody and they're one of those obnoxiously loud scribers, and they'll be like, and you're just like looking at the bus driver, and you have like an hour to go till you get off to your stop, and it's a once an hour bus running in the middle of the night, like 4 a.m, and someone's back there. You never had one of those?
Well,
I was doing that kind of shit.
When I was scribing and doing all that, I just ran with, it would be just me and Snap, or just me. So I controlled, things until I wanted it to happen. Usually I'd hit it right before I left.
Well,
I'd kind of chill, wait. And, right before my stop, I'd get up, bap, hit. All I needed to do back then, I felt, was, because I was the first guy in the southeast side, like on the 60s and 61s that ran down Long Beach.
That 60 was a beautiful line.
It was called the Bread Box. It was a square bus, RTD, and it had the most awesome scribable windows, bro. They were huge. The first big spot. So I'd get like the first two on this side, the one that's in the back, and then the one that I sometimes could get that one that was over there, but I'd get those three. Boom, boom, boom across the top.
Nice.
And those ran for like maybe 2 or 3 years, but then, because after that, it got crazy. Everyone started scribing, and eventually, since mine were the old and large ones, all the little scribes eventually start eating them up. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You could still see it there somewhere, you know what I mean? But there was all kinds of little stuff around it. And sandpaper later on. I mean, eventually got covered through the...
Hey, did you have that vibe where, like, since they had buses, you'd see this nice scribes from like 85, 86, 87, like just running, and it was like 89, 90, 91, and you kind of felt like the scribes that you'd gotten at that time would be there forever. Because like, oh, it's a permanent.
Yeah.
Remember when we used to use that word, permanent?
Yeah.
That sure got phased out, huh?
But the longest, were so cool, and these are the dudes that really like got the most mileage, was that little white panel in the back. That.
Oh yeah, that was the one that was the roll call of everybody.
Yeah, where you scribe and then they take
I get all happy seeing a minor 86.
Dirt, rub it in so you could see it like dark.
Oh, of course, man. Remember since it was fiberglass, it would give you like that splinters.
Yeah.
So you'd be feeling that scribe for days.
The dudes have little gloves or brownie gloves.
Man, for my scribing finger, it used to be deformed practically. It was such a big callus, on my fucking scribing finger. That did put a little mileage on those scribers.
Yeah, but those things ran forever, man. Like those things, until those buses got put out of service, you could still read like 87, see Maine and Deco, Orion.
Decker
Recon.
was one that made it to the San Gabriel Valley.
Yeah, Recon, Jin, Whisk, all of them. You'd see scribes from all kinds of dudes.
I used to see a UTI guy, Sorcery.
Yeah,
Spelled out the whole thing. He had a really nice scribe style.
He was up a lot. There was a lot of dudes. All right, so any just chase adventures or anything where you got sweated on when you were bus mobbing?
I'll talk about one bus adventure where I was with Ware, and we were involved in some battles. So we're doing some like obnoxiously silly shit, inside the bus, and the bus driver really wasn't having it, So he made some threats and pulled the bus over and didn't want to let us out. And I pulled a knife on the poor guy, and what makes the story funny was he pulled out a bigger one, and we ended up having to like jump out the back windows, So props to the RTD guy,
That's right,
for saving his bus, Well, that was an interesting one.
Can't hate on him for that.
Nah.
Okay, so now let's see. You take that name Fleece, put in a lot of work on it.
It's funny. Like people ask me why I changed it.
That's
like some people were saying that it looks similar to Sleaze, and I didn't see it. And funny thing, Sleaze didn't see it. I actually had that name when he put me in RTDK. But I was like, okay, the name didn't mean much or anything, so I figured I really wanted a 3-letter name. If I got to a point where like, let me have something I could do super fast, and that's when I came up with Oil Stuck.
Where did you come up with that? From the Houston Oilers?
Just I wanted a 3-letter name. I wanted something that I hadn't come across. I thought like that would be original. So turned out like I never seen any Oiler before 91, so I'll say worldwide I'll keep it.
Yeah, and there were different letters for sure. OIL, and even your crew COI was different. Those letters were not like, they were pretty rare. They were not standard type of letters that writers would pick. They'd always pick names with S's, K's, like Skaskin, Skurskin.
As far as trying to like develop wild styles with my letters, I still haven't got to that point yet. I never really had the interest, but now I have the interest in. Maybe something I'll do in my old age.
The buses, you do your thing with the buses. You get an RTDK. You pretty much did your thing, got up, got recognized, you did that. You knew what that was about. Then, what is it, like 90, 91, you really start pushing into throw-ups, high spots, landmarks. Talk about the transition to landmarks, which for the viewer, that means catching either a tag or a throw-up on a spot that's going to run for some time without getting erased or buffed. So they were usually hard to get places, poles, signs, things that you'd have to climb up kind of to access, or just little areas that are highly visible but managed to stay. And there's some people that had a good eye for it, and there's some people that didn't. So you were pretty successful in that. As a matter of fact, pics still surface of some of your landmarks. Some of them are still running to this day. So let's talk about that game and how you got into that, and how you pushed it, how you thought about that.
As far as spot location, I think that just develops naturally because you see what you're gonna see around you. Just by observing the city, you can't help but naturally gravitate to virgin brick walls, whether they're on the floor or whether they're on a rooftop. Pretty natural to notice pretty quickly what's going to stay up longer if you make the attempt to reach it. When I'd finally met, I consider like more or less my first writing partner, Sacred, we'd met in downtown. He's the one actually showing me where Belmont was. And I spent most of my weekends after finding that spot observing before I like really launched my name full force, observing for a little while, seeing who's doing what, learning the game. I thought that was important, because when it comes down to a graffiti name, people don't really think about it. That name is representing you as a human being, as a person. You know, if you're a piece of shit person, every time people see your name up, they're going to say, like, hey, there goes that piece of shit. The more up you get, that piece of shit's getting up, you know? So, you know, as far as society, developing a graffiti name, in theory, since you're putting yourself out there, you got to be responsible to be like a good person, right? Other than that, like, what are you representing? So, you know, once I figured out at Belmont, you know, who was who, met some friends, seeing what crews are what, you know, I was motivated to like start putting my name up. You know, it's a game, and back then the game was just still developing. Now the game is more or less developed. Anybody can join, you know, who likes. You know, if they have any questions about how to play it, you know, there's opportunities to learn, you know, with like a podcast like this. You know, there's magazines, there's books. You know, that wasn't available for us. You know, I was fortunate that the game was pretty much basically developed by the time I joined. You know, you not so much, unless you look at maybe New York or something, you know, ahead of you. But now the game is there. You know, I had opportunity to like you said, you know, bring the game up a notch. You know, I wasn't the first, but I hit it hard. You know, me and Sacred still had Virgin Rooftops on Broadway. You know, when we started, I was really excited, you know, to be able to hit those. You know, as far as Rooftops, street signs, that was a lot of fun I had, you know, like me and Decline, me and Tulse. Billboards, you know, same thing, same fellas. You know, those were just available all around the city, anywhere you looked, off every freeway. You know, and that hadn't really been massacred by anybody. Maybe, you know, one here and there by other people, but it wasn't really something that they focused on. Freeway bridges, same thing. Like, you know, probably less than a handful of people had ever done that when I got into like pushing that. So,
well,
what'd you think when you saw that shit?
Well, from my perspective, bro, I just saw that you were pushing the game by going hard. Like it was motivating because you were out there being consistent, getting up, and then pushing it further than anyone did up until that time. I mean, so like you said, you were doing stuff that had already been invented, but you were just doing more of it, more often, higher spot. It's like the energy level of it went up a whole notch. Trying
to do it well, and then you know when more people tuned into that, you know, it started being a competition. Like, well, shit, I better get off my ass because you know what? If I don't get these and things that I've been wanting, someone's gonna come do it. You know, so it was like, better get on it.
Yeah. Put it this way, you made such an impact that the only way to raise the bar beyond what you had done at that, like you maxed that out. So the only way to raise the bar was what like the OZ and Ayer and those guys started doing, which was like colorful pieces in those crazy spots.
Make them more colorful, more intricate. They had
to push them to have to like do something else because that generation, because pretty much for like what your generation was, freeway bombing, signs, heavens, and all that, you pretty much had like conquered that. And so
I think the only thing that was lost though was a lot of the next development stage of all the intricate colors that people were bombing in like those hostile spots was legibility. Mm-hmm. You know, because you know my shit was simple, but it didn't matter if you were a civilian or a writer. Yeah. You know, you're gonna see my shit and it's gonna slap you in the face. Mm-hmm. But it ended up being so artistic, so artsy that someone who's been in the game for 10 years writing at that point, I couldn't read their shit no more.
Yeah, yeah.
But because you know, it is what it is.
Wild styles and crazy styles up on crazy spots. All right, so now 1992, also at this time. So you're elevating the game on that level, but the bus scene is still going crazy. There was a new generation of bus riders that came out, like the CLKs and all them
your 60 line, man, they killed it.
Yeah, like NTSKC and all them were still going hard, and those types of crews, CLK. So what had happened is and also just a lot of tag banging started around that time. Those big bus riding crews started almost taking on like a gang flavor to them. And kind of the scene was taking a step backwards on that scene. The bus riders were. While guys like you were elevating it on the other side. At that time, Cliff Blatchford from Fox News did a real deep, in-depth story on graffiti. And it was like a series that he had done.
Yeah, he had done
once a week, right? It was like once a week when they were coming
He did one that was on tag banging.
Yeah.
And you know what? I really didn't care for that. I thought the way it was done, it looked bad for our scene. I didn't think they represented it well. It seemed like more like a hostile smash piece, against graffiti. And I got fortunate just going to like a little backyard boogie house party somewhere, and Chris Blatchford was there, and the word got around that we're both at that party, and we got invited to go do a special with them, and we took him up on it.
You're looking for the hardest place for the city to reach, so they're not able to buff your name.
But I really wanted to rebut, what he was showing with the tag banging one. Mm-hmm. So he did one that was called Daredevil Taggers, and we took the guy out, did a little bit of what we do.
He was actually there with you guys?
For a segment, not for the entire thing, but I was actually able to like be interviewed actually on a freeway, and I thought, a few of the things I mentioned, were a little bit more like graffiti writer related than any kind of tag bagging related, that there was something else, but it was kind of lost to me at the time because I seen all these writers that like went into neighborhoods and like I said, in the San Gabriel Valley. And then, I never seen like what the reason was to not gangbang, if that's what you want to do, why bring the competitive graffiti game into it? Mm-hmm. If I were to ask you, tell me 3 tag bangers that you remember as being up. Who you got? Seriously. So, it just seems like a whole backward idea. You don't need to tag bag. If you were anywhere in the graffiti world in the early 90s, you didn't need to tag bang, if you wanted to, have issues and shit. There's enough violence out there. Just if you wanted to get up, especially, you're going to encounter plenty of violence. You don't need to like look for it. It'll find you.
Want to know something interesting on that topic? In like the mid 90s, I ran into a sheriff's publication. It was a book they used to release amongst the sheriffs. I forget exactly what it was called, but in there they had a special article about gangs and the gang mentality in Los Angeles to kind of educate and put the sheriffs up on what was the roots of it. It was really fascinating. It was well done. One of the things just is because like it's almost like a gang expert that his observations on how LA ends up always like. So what he said is they even named the process, called it westernization. That's how they nicknamed it. And they said and it's true because you've seen it in the football teams like the Rascals, Wanderers, Rockwood, all them were football teams. Yeah. There were lowrider car clubs sometimes that went towards gangs. Then there was party crews when there was, the Knock Knock Boys and these boys and Stray Cats and all these other cats that became gangs. Then you even had punk gangs, FFF, Sacred Reich. You had the guys that like the West Side Posers and gangs that were like in a mod, and they were bangers,
right?
And they became neighborhoods, and eventually, and then also, so they said not only culturally, but like when new nationalities, immigrants come to the town, they get sucked into it because, for example, whoever's the newest person, like let's say and they were focusing on like the Vietnamese, because there was a lot of stuff going on at that time with the Vietnamese gangs beefing with the other gangs. And they said that a new culture will come in and their young people will eventually adopt these ways because to defend themselves, like, because they'll start getting kind of picked on by everybody else. So eventually they start saying, well, we're going to have to adopt some of these things to defend ourselves. And eventually they form their little protective little units, their little hoods. And then as they start going to jail, it's as they start picking up the lingo, the slang, pretty soon they're wearing Pendletons, putting on Lokes. You know, so they call that process. They said it surely happens.
Well, that process made it worldwide at this point. You know, you look at the Philippines or Japan. You know, that I don't know if you want to call it Chicano, you know, estilo. That's popular. That's been popular. That's been popularized all over the place.
African American, Chicano, white. I mean, it's prison. You know, that had a lot of, you know, with the clothing, the baggy,
low riding. You know, hip hop, and like all of these things.
That process tends to happen. Anything that's kind of like out there in the streets is always in LA. There's always that risk of that spirit or that vibe coming in and like kind of affecting it. You know, it's a reality. That you have to deal with when you're out here. And then later on, when I did work with youth and other youth workers, you know, that was kind of something that we were trying to kind of like eventually work with them to kind of steer them away from getting caught up on that vibe, you know. I mean, but even I got caught up in it. I mean, it's something that happens in LA.
See, that was my whole point, you know. I just didn't see the motivation to saying I'm looking for problems. You didn't have to. Yeah. You know, I'm going to tag bang. You don't have to. Just be in the scene, problems will find you.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of suckers in the game.
That's it.
You know, and there's people, if you really put yourself out there and get up, you know, what you consider up, people are going to try to get popular off your name. Ride your little piggy bank for their like 2 cents of popularity, you know? Who hasn't gone over? I'm sure you have, and you're like, the fuck was that fool thinking, you know?
Here's the thing: a lot of people don't talk about, and I mean, you were in heavily in this mix, and that's like a lot of the kids in LA, to get things they needed or wanted, whatever, they had to rack, and by the time you know, that was around since the early days, boosting paint, you know, clothing, whatever.
That was really hard to get used to. On, you know, everyone takes breaks in their career, and to go from all the paint was free to now everybody buys it.
Yeah.
That was a real shocker.
Mm-hmm. But during your days, the racking game was off the hinges, bro. It was crazy.
Well, you know, if you consider me as putting a lot of work, you know, with graffiti, aerosol, that paint had to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
And never broke my wallet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can't really remember ever buying paint. I don't know, maybe a Kills or something if I was on vacation. You know, at some little Mickey Mouse hardware store that you feel bad because it's mom and pop, you know, I'll buy a can. Fuck it. But other than that, you know, even in the LA riots, you know, we might have drove, you know, to a couple of circuit cities, but if there was a track auto next to it, you know, free paint during the riots, you know, and
talk about where were you at, you know, during the riots?
You know, because of my complexion, I kind of stayed north of the 10 freeway. You know, I was over there in Hollywood, you know, Sunset, around those areas. A little bit into the west side, a little further.
Did it affect over there pretty good?
Oh, it was jumping. You know,
what were some of the things you saw?
Cars driving by with their trunks open and dangling cords. You know, people breaking into the Circuit City on Sunset right there. Radio Shacks. Everyone just didn't seem like anybody like really cared much about the message of the riot. It was just pure looting, you know, in our area. And, you know, I'd wish I had more experience as being a looter. You know, it was my first time. Upon reflection, you know, we could have like been a lot smarter and, you know, came up quite a bit more. But who knows? 2024, right? You never know. It's every how many years in LA?
Yeah, man. I remember being torn because there was a kid, young or younger man side of, you know, like it's a free for all, like whatever. But at the same time, where I stayed in Linwood, we were cool with, like, we had the businesses there that were moms and pops businesses that we were cool with the owners. They were like our peoples. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, some neighborhoods saw the local residents defending their spots.
No,
you know?
I was throwing rocks at fools and stuff that were trying. You know, I didn't have a strap at the time, but so I was like just getting big rocks and just chucking it at dudes that were like looting this dude Hercules Burgers, this Greek dude, been there for years. They were busting his windows, getting in there, stealing all the meat and stuff. Man, I started throwing rocks at them. But that's just because like the passion in me was like more like this is going beyond. You know what I mean? It's out of hand, and fool. Now you messing with like fam. You know what I mean? And so that was my experience. While at the other side, I had homeboys that were pillaging. It was kind of a weird mix to be caught up in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I always thought there was a difference between racking and robbing. There's no insurance covering like your mom and pops and small business owner. They're just losing out. There's no insurance that they're getting rich with. But you're hitting Track Autos and Chief Autos and Home Depots or whatever, Builders Emporium. They're gonna do all right if they're missing a little bit of paint. They have to order an excessive amount of Scribes. Thrifties, if they just happen to like lose a cologne case here and there, they'll be all right. So, it's like I said, you should have a little bit of principle as a person, especially if you're going to put your name all around the city.
Yeah. But so for the viewers, no doubt, Graph always did not. Now, I'm not talking about the art side, the piecing, but the bombing side always has. Since it's from the streets, there's that criminal element in there. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes dudes partake of it, sometimes they don't. But to find a writer that was the bomber guy that was getting up and didn't rack whatever, it was pretty rare. Usually they were more criminalistic dudes.
Yeah, there's been a little bit of a separation, within the COI crew. I'll bring that one up, my first crew. It was more or less a piecing crew, and I joined that crew kind of coming in with, my little criminal element, the more illegal driven, and I seen a podcast that my friend Man was doing, and he'd be an example. He went to art school, developed his talent. Works as an artist these days, makes a good living from it. But I think we went out and painted illegally, not counting yards, but like an actual illegal spot, maybe twice, but there's people that definitely show the difference. You have graffiti writers that are killers. And you have graffiti writers that are, only hipster artists, to put it, and they're all welcome in the scene, but you have a wide variety of individuals in the graffiti scene. This, you could go on and on for days, but the result of that is you have friends that are gone, and a lot of that's due to that criminal element side. You have friends now that, and you see this, like from the late 80s, early 90s, they caught cases. And it's just now, after 2020, 4 now, they're just coming out.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was, gang violence, but a lot of it was, they were in the graffiti game as well. So there are cases, that people that are in the graffiti game that never been to jail, never caught a case, never had any incidents of violence. But that's not any really other people I hung out with, or that I knew, more power to them. But the graffiti game is a dangerous game, just it could be death, could be incarceration. If you made it this far, like you and I, we're extremely lucky.
That brings me to this. After like at about the late 90s, Euler starts kind of disappearing. Where was Euler? What was he doing during like the 2000s and 2010s or whatever?
Well, because of that criminal element we were discussing, you end up with having a lot of contact with the law. I got away with 99.9% of everything I was doing, because that was racking crime all day, writing crime all night, getting loaded and going to the parties, in between, and shit. The only thing that wasn't crime, 24/7 was sleeping, and shit, if they knew what I was dreaming about, they'd probably lock me up in an asylum too, So it was 24/7 crime. So getting away with 99.9%, I'd still average 3 or 4 contacts with the law, every year. And they started adding up. And I just got to push to a point where they gave me the joint suspension. And I realized there's no way I can go 3 years without screwing it up, having contacts. So I bounced out to Texas. I had a family member out there. And I completed my joint suspension, and came back to California. There's nothing I liked about Dallas, Texas. I don't recommend it, It's not for me.
All right. One of the unique things that you experienced was that you were actually dating in the early 90s during your heyday another very active female writer named Tribe. That's what they called her. She was really up. She was bombing hard. And you guys were kind of like the Bonnie and Clyde of that era, bro. Talk about that experience.
Yeah, I give it to it. Like, I considered us the most up couple at that time. She had it over all the other chick writers at that time. For a young man like me, we had the same interests. Coming up, getting up. I think at that age, you're not looking for intellectual conversation with your partner, perhaps. I turned her on to a lot of game coming up. She was an established writer before I met her. She continued on with that. We just had a lot of fun until it wasn't fun no more. There tends to be drama in young relationships. Ours ended when she put a court case on me, called the cops. And, some people, it's up to them if they forgive things like being cheated on or whatever. But for me, once somebody calls the cops on you, that's a one and done. There's no forgiving that. And my whole picture collection thing was probably real important to me. She held that hostage for years. And, I more or less forgave her, as time passed, time heals, whatever. And I got her to return I documented my graffiti really well, and a lot of other people's graffiti is, so I spent all that time at yards. So I had a pretty massive, and plus I racked, so I had a really nice camera for all those years. I had a really nice picture collection. So I was a little traumatized, but I knew she had it somewhere. And I got it back. And then since I still had some contacts with the lots here and there, I decided to give that collection at my family's house. And then one day I came out and I was told that collection was gone. And you'd asked if I had a few things, to bring for the show here. And I brought back all those memories of, what do you mean it's gone? No, it's not. To this day, I have this much hope that it's still somewhere. And when my stepmother passes, there'll be a little note or something like, yo, here's your shit. You never know.
I remember, though, that brings up a memory, and we've talked about this. When you were with Tribe, we were all at a rave, and there was almost a civil war between UTI and SDP over some stuff. And I want to talk about this story because there's a G-code lesson in this. as far as just holding your peoples down, I think, and having to make quick calls on like what's right or wrong. You want to tell that story? Heliotrope?
Yeah. Well, me and Tribe had just come back that night from racking. You know, I had a trunk full of those, you know, colognes, and it pretty much just heard there's a nice little party at Heliotrope. There'll be a lot of writers present, and there were. Everybody was there, you know, but I just happened to show up with her, and just the two of us. But you were there, a bunch of other UTI brothers, STPs, you know, random writers. But that was those times where they had a thing called the mob mentality. You know what that is, because I've been in the mob mentality too, where you're with your people in a certain inebriated state, you know, and you feel that like all rules and manners or whatever are out the window. You know, we can do what we want, how we want, and you know, fuck anybody who ain't with it.
Okay, let's pause there so I can shoot you what was happening on the other side of the coin. So that night there was that party, that rave happening, that we knew the dude who was throwing it. We had pieced up in there. So I think we had called you and invited you. The STPs, I invited them, and which I was like, man, at the time they were really rolling deep and really active and kind of in a so I was hoping to influence them maybe like to get into some party and open their mind, expand their minds a little bit. But that got shot down real quick because when they came and picked me up, whatever, because I rolled with them, we stopped by a 7-Eleven to pick up some brews. These fools go in there and just take over the 7-Eleven, bros, start taking just cases of beer. The workers started like tripping on them, and these fools started throwing beers at them. And I mean, just
that was before,
right before that. I'm like, what is going on here? What am I getting into now? We get in, the cars get back. I'm like, man, you fools better start acting right, whatever. And when we get there, we roll up there, and I could tell they're feeling themselves, and it didn't seem like it was that long before they were already getting into trouble. Someone calls me over and said, Skill, like, man, something's going on over here or something. And so now go ahead and now describe whatever it was from your point of view.
Oh, well, you know, I was just there with Tribe. She was dressed like, you know, she ready to do a dance or whatever, you know, her little stilo back there. And just, it got disrespectful, you know. I don't know. Some people knew she was I was with her at the time. Some people might not have known, but it got disrespectful. And
in other words, the fools leaned in on her real heavy. Is that?
Yeah, and then you know, so I spoke on it, and then somebody in the group didn't like that I spoke back because of that mob mentality.
Yeah,
you know, nobody cares what's being said. It's just like, oh, you want to challenge the mob? And that was it. So you know, I caught a punch from the back. Not even to who I was talking to. And that's where it kicked off. I was like, blood? And that was it. And then
but so that okay, so I think
I remember
a scuffle, right? And then what we did is we said, okay, because then it was turned into like, what? So we said, look, make it a fair one. If you got a problem, okay, you know, you disrespected this lady, whatever, he ain't down with it. And so me and Snap and a couple of the other STPs that were the older ones, we said, okay, we're just going to have these dudes run a fade and squash it. So here's the G lesson. Everyone knows from when you grow up in a LA high school or you go to the county or to a prison, that running a fade is a respectable, if done right, correctly, it's a respectable way to just let dudes get stuff off their chest.
To de-escalate in theory from everybody having to fucking get involved.
It kind of just nips it in the bud and ends it. You know what I mean? And both people usually walk away with respect. Like, okay, you were down for yours, I was down for mine. We agree to disagree.
True.
And we got our shots in, whatever, right?
But, you know, ironically, in that situation, whoever it was that was disrespecting on Tribe wasn't the person that I actually
had to go heads up
with, right?
Well, but it was chaotic. But either way,
I didn't care.
Yeah,
whatever.
But there was a dude representing, right? And so so we all went outside. The circle formed, and bam, what happens next?
The one-on-one took place. I remember. I think toward the end, I lost balance. I was getting like pinned or something, and I think someone came and kicked me in the head. Well, who wasn't the one-on-one, And then when that transpired, then I just recall everything going off at that point. You know, that was the end of the one-on-one. And it was just, you know, a ruckus. I remember everything from side to side. From behind, someone claimed me with a crowbar or some type of fucking tool. And I was leaking again. And that was a point, you know, the whole time I was carried a knife, you know, and I pulled it after getting hit with that. And then somebody else came, threw a punch at me and caught the knife. You know, so that's pretty much what ended it. You know, they saw that that arm got opened up, and there's still a cop just sitting there watching this whole thing. And that's more or less, you know, I think Swan was holding the door, went back in the club, and people like went their merry way, you know, at the end of that night. But you know, I'd like to thank you. You know, I know you helped out when like more than that one person like was jumping in. You helped, Snap helped. You know, I appreciate that. A few others.
Because that's what I wanted to talk about is because like, so the lesson here is that, you know, SCPs are like family. They are family, you know, and I came with them. But they are expected to learn and play by those rules just like everyone else is. If we all come to an agreement that, okay, we're gonna watch over, let these two dudes, that's supposed to be like the kind of the authority that and really there's supposed to be a mutual unity to create a safe environment for these dudes to handle this and get it done. And it turned into a civil war where like my brother is torn up like, Charles, what are you doing? Like it sucked to see my own family. We're on opposite sides scrapping and everyone's throwing down and it spills over into the street.
Yeah, but you know what? I got to give credit where credit's due. You know, you saw something that was unfair, and you know, you try to balance the odds. You know.
Yeah. And then I remember like feeling the residue of like, oh crap! Now, like, what's gonna happen now? If these dudes keep, because they're knuckleheads and they're really active right now. We're older guys that are more into piecing and stuff. We're not trying to get drawn into nothing, especially with our own people. So we knew that couldn't go on. And after a few days, I think, you know, eventually it went, you know, it got.
Well, actually, like
squashed.
There were some people that stayed mad because the guy that cut himself. So, you know, I think for a few months after that, you know, when I'd be hanging out in the valley or, you know, I'd go somewhere like with Tulsa or something, and he'd warn me. He'd be like, "Yo, some of those fellas are coming down right now. You know, fucking." You know, I was packing back then. You know, just for my safety, and you know, I didn't want no incident. I didn't want to take that any further. You know, I ended up, you know, that whole thing got squashed with time as well. You know, I never, you know, I think that the guy that got cut, I think I was with him in the county jail after that. We actually we're in a riot together, if I remember correctly. You know, that all got squashed, you know. It's just a funny story at this point.
Yeah, well, you know, and then the older you get, you learn, obviously, you know, hopefully grow out of all that stuff. And I mean, I've learned that, you know, at the end of the day, it like true G code and true manhood and true everything is to de-escalate things and to create a peaceful environment wherever you're at. You know, that's harder to do. It's the easy thing to be a knucklehead. It's the easy thing to escalate things.
Yeah.
That doesn't take any thought, brain power, courage, or nothing. It's to de-escalate.
But also, though, you know, if you're gonna have a real beef, you know, like have it for a good reason. Have it for a real reason. You know, have it behind something.
Yeah.
You know, that's, you know, like I said, there's all this in the graffiti game. You're gonna have stupid people fuck with your shit, you know, and that just gets old. It gets tiring. You know, you talk about back in the days with the high spots. Yeah, it was fun hitting those spots until you got to go back for the second time, the third time to the same fucking spot, and then it becomes a fucking. It's not a. Those are 2 or 3 times that you could have hit new spots. You know, it's redundant, and you know. What do you do? Just let people cap your shit? No. But, you know, when, like what happened to me, eventually graffiti by like 94, graffiti started feeling like a job. You know, it's like, okay, I'm going because I have to, because other people are fucking with my shit. You know, so Yeah.
Word. Well, okay. So, let's talk about any words of wisdom, last words, maybe anything you want to. Okay. Actually, this is something that I really want to pick your brain on, is being a guy who played at such a high level in this game back then, and now you're watching the way things have changed in the city. LA is bombed way more than ever. What do you think has to do with that? That has to do with, and what do you see are the differences between the writers now and then?
I don't know. We can start with enforcement. Right now, with the way Los Angeles as a city is being treated, as far as the beautification of LA, you see it's filled with trash and tents, and it's the city's being disregarded. So along with that, it doesn't seem like they're too concerned with enforcing any of the old graffiti enforcement. I haven't heard about people's houses getting raided for graffiti lately. I could be wrong. Maybe I just haven't heard. And when I'm driving around at night, I encounter people like just spray painting with a camera and their girlfriend with them, and like not a care in the world.
It's like a free for all now.
Yeah, like a free for all. I just imagine that. It wasn't like that, and there's a good possibility that it won't be like that again. It just takes a different perspective. Who knows? Maybe the Olympics are coming up in the couple years or whenever. People's attitudes change. Yeah. So right now, graffiti got trendy or more mainstream, but all it takes is a few changing perspectives, from some people with power, and could go back to the days of 4 a.m. Your door gets kicked in and there's a task force. It doesn't take much when they have a motivation. All of a sudden, tagging on this brick wall costs $10,000 to clean. That's a double felony.
Are you saying then that so these cats are kind of getting away with some stuff? They in other words, if the atmosphere was the way it was then, it would have weeded probably a lot of these cats out, and there wouldn't be as many that were. LA wouldn't be as killed.
Well, that too, and it's not early '90s gangbanging either.
Yeah.
We talked about that tag banging, but aside from that, the gangs were active.
They were holding down their territory.
I've been on the freeway shot at a number of times.
Yep.
I was on Broadway shot at. I've donated paint, like to a couple of neighborhoods. You don't hear too much. So and so. I remember some of those specials too, were like a couple writers that got killed in gang violence from Chris Blatchford,
Yeah.
Those things have all mellowed out. And, people getting raided, that's mellowed out. Who's to say they'll get tired of the homeless, they'll get tired of graffiti at some point, I'm thinking the Olympics might be a kicker for that.
So when giving props out, would you say that you take those things into consideration? You know what I'm saying? When you're like, if the person did it and they're not having to face a lot of the same obstacles?
Well, not really, because it's, the current writers, it's not their fault.
Yeah.
It's their benefit. It's not enforced as much. The gangbanging's died down. A lot of the opportunities that writers at my time had to, like, we talked about earlier as well, bring things higher, do things that are a little more challenging. It's all been done before, and you got to be kind of creative now, to do something to separate yourself from the rest,
Right.
But at the same time, there's a lot less competition. It's you could really go out in LA for 1 week, and if you paint the entire night, you could be the most up in the city in one night. Maybe I take that back. Maybe you can't do as much like roller painting or, in 1 week, but it's not that challenging, anymore, because heavens aren't being hit, bridges aren't really being hit. It's rooftops, roller action, which is fine and dandy. more power to like whatever's going on during your era,
Yeah. Yep. Every era has its challenges. And I think one of the ones of this era is, like you said, that the bars have been pushed up to do something new. They have to really get creative.
Because I'm like, okay, if I'd been privileged to be around in the 80s, late 80s, why climb a bunch of shit when the stuff right here in front of you is staying up? Fuck.
Well,
seems unnecessary.
Dudes are doing that para bungee, whatever, where they're doing vertical stuff down the buildings. That based on the Brazil, Brazil started doing that, and then now they brought.
See, it's interesting you bring that up, and we were just talking about enforcement. Yeah, I've been seeing that, but if you're gonna hit a glass skyscraper, and do that the mountain climbing, hanging type thing, I'd be pretty nervous about at about between 3 and 5 in the morning, wherever the hell I'm living at. Because I wouldn't imagine that somebody's not going to be pretty vindictive, about that going down on a skyscraper. I just think whoever, I know whoever, but I just hope they're taking the precautions, wherever they rest.
Well, and to be fair, man, word has come, and I've seen some of the pictures where like dudes are renting the lifts to do that stuff, like on the more cleaner, nicer stuff.
I'm just saying this shit's on Instagram,
but the stuff that's hanging is kind of more, you could tell because it's a little like rougher, like they're not as comfortable, But some of the stuff that's really nice, I think they actually rent the lifts and whatnot.
No, I'm just saying as far as you're saying they get permission from the building owner?
No, I think they don't. But what I'm saying is that
I wouldn't imagine anybody
they
would
get
go
over.
for that.
I think maybe looking like workers.
I wasn't just saying. I don't
know.
It'd be easy to do. I'm just saying what's not easy is hiding from the consequences if somebody really wants to push the issue and get you.
Oh, yeah.
And just the cost involved of what they can claim it costs to clean something like that. Imagine you get hit with that restitution.
Yeah. No, that's hard.
I got pretty fortunate when I got hit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I said, 4 a.m, your door opens, you're like sleep, like what the fuck? But they'll try super hard to get you for every single type of crime they can imagine, out of being vindictive,
A lot of people don't talk about that, the consequences and the suffering that goes it's a risk you take. It's an insanity because at the end of the day, you're not making money doing it. And for that credibility, fame, expression, whatever you want to call it, and this is on the bombing level, I'm not talking about the art or the piecing. Usually there's some very rough consequences. Let's talk about some of the stuff
they'll come
suffered.
at you. They'll come at
also,
you.
Also, just the suffering that you've been through because of it. Like, how has your life gotten harder just from direct consequences, bro?
From graffiti, I've done minimal jail time for that. They tried to charge me with the whole package, but I was more or less as prepared as you could be. So their case more depended on telling on myself. But I was fortunate because I'd hung around with like older individuals, who laced me up a little bit with the game, what to do and when it comes to like dealing with the police. And the simplest rules, talk to your lawyer, don't talk to the police. And they will come. As the weaker their case is the stronger they'll come at you and play all the little games, to your cell, back for a detective interview, to your cell, back to the interview. Here's pictures of all this stuff. You're stupid. We're going to charge you with this, that, and fucking Kennedy's assassination, fucking, and, lack of sleep, all the fucking pressure and threats. You'll actually sit there and be wondering, man, like, what is the right move to make? And you know what? If you can't figure it out, great. Make no move at all. Talk to your lawyer. Don't talk to the police. And, I stuck to my guns, fortunately, and there was a lot of pressure. I was like fucking 18, 19 or something. But I was fortunate, I stuck to my guns. And then they come at you with the final one. So we're going to put you in front of a jury. We're going to take your case, to the whitest part of the valley. and they're going to decide if you, within reason, did all this we're accusing you of or not. And then you think to yourself, and then you more or less, you have to like make your decision. You know, do you want to test the waters right there? Or do you want to come up with a deal, you know, that you can accept? Because I played the game as the best I can, I was able to take a deal that I could accept, which didn't include a felony graffiti, which didn't include restitution. And my advice to others would, when these Olympics come, and if you ever get up to a point where you think the law enforcement would be vindictive, or if you believe that you're causing others to do more graffiti and they look at you as a role model, just be prepared. Mm-hmm. Don't leave like all the physical evidence of everything you did in the place you lay your head. But, you know, also with media the way it is these days, social media, everybody just seems to disregard, you know, caution, you know, remembering that it only takes the wind to change for all that evidence to be used against you. So, you know, I wish everybody good luck as far as the social media stuff goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Including this, yeah, you know, but I never did the crime that I couldn't do the time. You know, that's why I retired from doing a lot of stupid shit. Yeah. You know, I like to enjoy these years of my life, you know, and be a father, you know, enjoy my wife, you know.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of my prayers is that, you know, in these podcasts, I mean, we look at the good, the bad, the ugly. We look at it all for what it is. But being older, we could look at it from the bigger picture and take and learn from things and, you know, and then make a judgment call with all of the information. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know, we're not pushing any particular thing on anybody. All we're doing is just, hey, from the horse's mouth, this is what they live. This is their story. This is what they've been through. And then, you know, you take it from there, you know?
Yeah.
So I think with that, why don't we go ahead and give some shout outs, bro, to some people that meant something to you, bro, or mean something to you in your life.
Okay. We didn't talk too much about crews.
The LODs. Let's talk about the LODs just a little bit before as part of the shout outs.
Gotta give a shout out to, well, you know how this is, you know, you're gonna leave people out that, you know, don't pop into mind, but with LODs, give a couple shout outs to the lost ones, you know, to a good friend of mine, Lest, from LOD, real trooper.
Military veteran, right?
Yeah, you know, he used to do the Heavens, you know, when they were still like starting Heaven days. Good dude. You know, he was one of those people like you meet them in a strange way. You know, we used to have this Ranger Ricks, you know, that we used to party at, and he was defending some women's honor, you know, because one passed out when we were doing like nitrous balloons or something, and it's like, "Oil, what are you doing?" You know, and you know, it's like, don't be fucking with these girls, you know. And after that, we met like in that conflict, and then we ended up being like best friends, you know, and got him into my electric union, and he had ended up with cancer, lost a leg, still kept working, and so overall, like fucking, you know, great person, you know. I think about him fucking still daily. You know, these two up there, last skate, you know, I had the privilege of meeting him, you know, in those years, you know. We used to drink for like 40s at Barnesdale when I had the opportunity to meet him, you know, fucking. That was a big loss, you know. I was in Supermax, you know, when I heard that news. When some fools, they were clowning, you know. Some stupid tagger got hit by a fucking train and da da da. And I was like, the fuck? And yeah, it turned out being him, man. Fucking shed tears for that. I ended up meeting his father another time in county jail, and kind of took his dad under my wing, you know, and. He was a cool cat. That was random.
You remember when we ran into each other in the county?
Yeah, yeah, I do, man. ran into a lot of people on all those trips, man. Fuck. Toltz, man. Gotta give a shout out remembering Toltz, you know. And that was a big loss. I happened to be out of state, you know, when that transpired, and that was bad news.
You guys had rolled hard, huh?
You know, like, I got to give him the credit, you know. To me, you know, from who I've come across and like what I've seen, what I've tried to, you know, accomplish myself, he was the most prolific writer, you know, in any individual part of the city, you know. I might have spread myself out a little further, but like for the San Fernando Valley, you never seen any part of the city just controlled and devastated that much, you know, by one writer. You know, and as far as racking goes, you know, I give myself a little props for being pretty well. You know, I supported myself for half a decade, you know, off racking, but the only person I seen my equal was him as well. You know, Tulsa, he excelled in everything he did. And homeboy Sleaze, you know, he was pretty much like my main mentor. You know, Sacred showed me a lot of the game. The first like real writer, I was a writing partner, but Sleaze, me and him had a lot more in common. So, you know, he was a mentor that meant a lot to me. And I'd been to a lot of funerals, you know, through the years. But, you know, I had a small family. You know, I never really had much loss other than my pops. But Sleaze hurt a lot. You know, me and him were in close contact because of our medical issues. You know, right before he passed, and it was unexpected, and that one was a bad one. But yeah, I give props to all my youngster homies. You know, the ones that are putting it down right now. You know, no names there, but you know who you are. You know, get some props out there. The young OTR youngsters, the current LODs. A couple close UTI homies, you know, they know who they are. Call my BLA homies out there, still putting it down. Fucking, the old COI kids, you know, from the K&B COIs that got back together that are doing podcasts now. I remember you old fucks, you know. Yeah, if anything comes up, I'll drop it in there.
Right on. Okay, my brother. Well.
Oh, you know what? Hey, give props out there to my queen. Her CDP homies have been showing me a lot of hospitality lately.
Cool.
Peace to all you brothers.
All right. City, Sector, CDP, Gun.
That's right.
Maz, Havoc. I want to say some shout outs to Danny Cuvo. Congratulations on baby Danny. You know, love you. Can't wait to get up there and hang out with you. And I want to say shout outs to Julian Beitzman. He's a collector that's collected my work in Switzerland, man. Awesome dude. Thank you, B-Boy Jay. Be looking out for them stickers I'm going to be sending you. Shout out to JB, Switzerland in the house. All right, my brother. So any last words?
Nah, I think we had a pretty good face-to-face. Cool. Appreciate the invite. You know, thanks a lot.
All right, my
Appreciate
brother.
your friendship through the years, man.
Yes, sir. Likewise, brother. God bless. We out. Classic Burners.
Because time is our most precious resource, always remember that every minute, every second, and every moment matters. So let's do our best to live a kind, compassionate, and loving life. God willing, we'll see you in the next episode. 1.
Monstro Rocker, dilated. The natives are restless. Yeah, I say the natives are restless. The natives are restless. Rocker, Irish science. Let's go, let's go. Yo, let's gather here a second, taking the atmosphere. As I steer this vessel like a Chevrolet Cavalier, I'm a native to this culture, chasing vultures up out of here. Fuck out of here, a lot of work put in like Vladimir, we dismissing fear. Listen here, if your loyalty shifts over clout to the point where you disappeared and disappear. You overlooked or if you wrote the book, how does that work? How you a factor when there's gaps in your chapters? Let's cancel the chatter off the grid, damage your scanner, shed some light in this tavern and hold this mic just like a lamp. pattern. I don't settle for the standard or nestle in the pasture. Turn a happy camper into a snack for a pack of panthers. My pops would often reminisce on the mothership landing, and then become sad in it how the brothers disbanded over money mismanaged and traditions abandoned.